Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of our malicious compliance. Management says I'm losing my unused vacation days because of a new unpublished handbook rule. Okay, I will comply with the rules of this new unpublished handbook, but these 4 paid unused vacation days will cost you thousands. I worked for a company with great pay and benefits, one of which was vacation days. I worked there for years without any performance or attendance issues. I was also an employee who would not work overtime. I give 100% while I'm there. That's all I have to offer. Other than that, no issues. Each year, I pre-planned my vacation days. We had to put our plans on a calendar for approval, and I wanted to receive my approval before confirming my plans, so I did everything as early as possible. I had no vacation request problems for years and did not hear of other employees having issues with their vacation time/pay. Then, one year, all of a sudden, after using all but 4 of my vacation days, management said I had no additional paid vacation time. I reviewed our online handbook, gathered my requested and approved time off, and checked my check stubs to verify the paid vacation days I'd taken thus far. I presented everything to management for research. My direct manager said he checked, and I didn't have 4 additional vacation days. That wasn't good enough, so I asked him to forward it to his manager. His manager said the same thing, that wasn't good enough. Eventually, my concerns reached the center manager. The center manager called me into a meeting. I again presented my findings, showing I had 4 unused vacation days left. He then began discussing changes to our vacation policy while making eye contact and smiling. He turned his computer around to show me the new handbook they constructed reflecting the new vacation policy. Wait a minute, what? There is an online employee handbook, yet I am supposed to go by a new handbook not known to employees. Make that make sense. I politely said, okay, and walked out. I removed my 4 days from the vacation calendar. I then began chatting with other employees to see the number of days they had taken for that year and the number of days they might have left. Conversations like, how was your vacation? How long did you stay? Are you choosing a different place to spend the rest of your vacation days? Asking these and related questions allowed me to calculate the number of vacation days they used or had remaining. I did not find one other employee having my issue with vacation time. I waited a couple of months and filed a lawsuit while working there. Other employees did not know about my lawsuit, at least not from me, but I'm sure management knew. The lawsuit discovery process revealed an email chain. The email chain showed the center manager directly asking Human Resources about my 4 unused vacation days and Human Resources confirming I had 4 unused vacation days. The center manager used a fictitious new handbook to cover his and other management actions, denying my unused vacation time. Shortly after that, we settled, and they paid thousands for 4 unused vacation days. I had to resign, of course, and the center manager and other management lost their positions, retired, or quit. All I wanted was my unused, paid vacation time. But what I received was much more. Next story. Suspended for being a minute late? Fine, enjoy handling the biggest project without me. Hey there, Reddit. I've been a long-time lurker on this subreddit, and after what happened at my job recently, I just knew I had to share my story. It's a bit of a long one, but trust me, it's worth it. So, I'm Mark, and for the past 5 years, I've been working at this mid-sized tech company. It's been great, or at least it was, until 6 months ago when we got a new HR manager, Susan. Now, Susan is the kind of person who loves rules a bit too much. She came in with this idea to revolutionize the workplace, but all she did was implement a bunch of unnecessary and strict policies. The one that really got under everyone's skin was her new attendance policy. It stated that if anyone was even a minute late more than 3 times in a month, they'd face immediate suspension without pay. No excuses, no exceptions. This was crazy, considering we're all seasoned professionals, not school kids. But Susan was adamant, and the policy was enforced to the letter. Now, I'm usually very punctual, but life happens, right? Just my luck, I ended up being late 3 times in 1 month. The first was because of a massive traffic jam, the second was due to a power outage that killed my alarm, and the third, well, I overslept. Each time, I was barely 5 minutes late, but Susan didn't care. she slapped me with a suspension notice. I was fuming, but then I remembered something important: our employee handbook. I'd read that thing cover to cover when I first started, and something about the suspension policy stood out to me. I dug up my copy and found the section I was looking for. The policy stated that suspended employees must leave company premises immediately and are not allowed to engage in any work-related activities during their suspension. A plan started to form in my head. You see, at that time, I was in the middle of a critical project for a major client. It was a huge deal for the company, and I was the lead developer. Without me, the project would grind to a halt. So, I decided to follow Susan's policy to the letter. The next day, I walked into Susan's office and handed her the suspension notice, along with a printed copy of the employee handbook's suspension policy. I told her, as per the company policy, I will be leaving the premises immediately and will not partake in any work-related activities during my suspension, including the Johnson project. The color drained from her face. "You can't just leave the Johnson project," she exclaimed. But I just shrugged and said, "Company policy, Susan. I'm sure you wouldn't want me to break the rules." I gathered my things and left the office. The fallout was immediate. The project team was in disarray without me, and the client was getting antsy about the missed deadlines. The CEO himself called me 2 days into my suspension, begging me to come back. I explained that I was merely following company policy, as enforced by Susan. Long story short, the CEO had to intervene. My suspension was lifted, and I was back at work the next day. The best part? Susan's ridiculous policies were all reviewed and mostly scrapped. She's still with the company, but let's just say her enthusiasm for rulemaking has significantly diminished. So, there you have it, folks. Sometimes, following the rules a little too closely can be the best form of rebellion. And always know your employee handbook. Next story. The scheduler in management refused to let me switch schedules after scheduling me to close at 11 p.m. and open at 5 a.m. Okay, I will call in, and the other bookkeeper will not answer her phone. Several years ago, I was a bookkeeper for a huge home improvement store. As a bookkeeper, I arrived at 5 a.m. to prepare for the store opening and stayed until 11 p.m. for closing. There were 2 of us, but for some reason, the scheduler in management would have one of us close and open the following day. We had a part-timer who worked 4 to 6 nights a month because she was in school. She did not open. The other bookkeeper closed and opened without complaining. But for me, that was absurd. Leaving the store at 11 p.m. and returning at 5 a.m. is unreasonable. We spoke with the scheduler in management to no avail. So, whenever the schedule came out, we switched if one of us was scheduled to close and open. The scheduler in management noticed but kept quiet because someone was there to do the work, although they continued scheduling us to close and open for years. Eventually we got a new scheduler and manager who wanted to flex their authority over all departments and demanded the other bookkeeper, and I worked the printed schedule hours. We maliciously complied. The following schedule had me closing and opening. I closed and called in the next morning. They tried calling the other bookkeeper, but she did not answer. I asked her not to respond. The part-timer could not work because she had school. No one else was trained in bookkeeping, not even management. This meant they needed to contact me for instructions on opening the store. I was paid a minimum of 15 minutes for each call they made. If the call exceeded 15 minutes, I was paid a minimum of 30 minutes. You get the picture. By the end of the day, I was paid for a full day. After that day, neither the scheduler nor the management said a word about which bookkeeper was working, regardless of the schedule. Next story. My aunt accused me of having a crush on her, so I made she knew how right she was. Hello, I, 24 female, have a completely chaotic dumpster fire for a family. If it isn't one thing, it's the next, and as such, I do not visit my family unless forced or on holidays because they're invited despite my suggestions. Here more recently, last summer I believe, my aunt got into a problem with me, the eldest of my siblings, and my eldest younger sister, 21, because my aunt felt it was her right to bully and abuse my youngest sister through her own children and their phones. Which, okay, that was a thing, but this post isn't entirely about that. I called CPS because of some allegations that came my way about the treatment of my aunt's child, and because of that she was trying to figure out who did it and was gossiping with my elder cousin, her adult stepdaughter, about who it could be and said, and I'm quoting, "Well, it could have been Opie, she does have a crush on me." When my cousin looked flabbergasted at such a ludicrous statement, my aunt's 9-year-old daughter pipped up, "It's true. She really does." Taff? So not only is my aunt abusive and less than dirt in my opinion, she's also completely delusional and is so much so her children know of this particular belief. Now, when I heard this ridiculousness, I didn't know what to do with it really, like what do you say and do about that? Blow up at her? Call her an insufferable pig? Dive deeper into when she started believing this, blasting her online, etc. And then malicious compliance came to mind and the Grinch's grin smeared across my face. Starting from that day I heard this rumor, ending in every time I saw her I flirted hard. "OMG auntie, aren't you the sexiest thing I've seen today?" Or "My god, uncle, I wouldn't let that be through your fingers. If you ever want a massage, let me know. I would love to give one to the prettiest girl here." Gosh, there is just no way you're over 50 years old. "Uncle, you're a very very lucky man," as examples. I whistle as a greeting to her, and I make sure to wink at her at least once per interaction. She doesn't know my cousin, her stepdaughter, told me about her accusation. She looks so uncomfortable every time I approach or even arrive at family gatherings, and I effing love it. Karma's a witch. Maybe don't bully and abuse kids and fill your own children with nonsense rumors like your niece, who you've known since she was 8 years old, wanting to doodle you. I'm never going to stop. I have a crush on my aunt, after all. Edit, something I didn't think I'd have to clear up is, I do not have a crush on my aunt. Sarcasm is a thing. Not to mention, some have said this just makes me look bad. To who exactly? The woman telling her children that her niece wants her? My family? The dumpster fire? Y'all ever heard of a rumor so ridiculous that you just go with it? If I raised a huge fuss about it, that would have made me also look guilty with that logic. This way, I have the power, and maybe, just maybe, she'll think twice about ridiculous rumors. Edit 2, people worried this will make it worse. I don't know what to say to you really. It probably will. But before this issue I had literally never had an issue with her, always cordial, so if she can manifest this kind of BS in her head with no reason at all, then me not doing anything wouldn't have helped either. Edit 3, I will clarify, I ranted about this ridiculousness to my family that I actually care about, my sisters, my mother, and my grandmother, all of which do not speak to my aunt because of some past conflict or another. So, to a degree it's an inside joke at my aunt's expense. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.